There we go. All right. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
This is Gabby.
I'm Gabby.
I'm me.
Ned.
Thanks for tuning into this video seminar on YouTube now instead of being on Instagram Live to cover the Goatboy Selections.
Now Byron Bates
portfolio here. Here I am, Byron Bates.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to go through these. Like I said in the email newsletter, like we just tasted through a whole bunch of new other wines, other stuff, like a full portfolio tasting, and these are really, really pretty, really cool, exciting wines. I'm excited to have these, and excited to revisit these now.
Yeah.
So
for sure. I mean, I think we're definitely the book itself is trying to show natural wine in a refined and classic way. Fresh, clean.
Yeah. So I don't. Do you know when Byron started Goatboy? Like,
you know, it's about 7 or 8 years ago. But Byron's been, you know, in
yeah,
you know, he was the first Sansouf list in New York City. He's been in and out of this for like the last 20 plus years.
Right.
But it's about 8 years ago, I believe.
Yeah. It's got to be at least that long ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember when I first started getting wines from Byron through T. Edward.
Yeah.
It was way back.
Yeah, way back.
Feels like way back.
Yeah, but again, you know, like the book started, but 8 years seems like so long ago.
So long ago.
I mean, we just let 2 years go by and we didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, about 8 years, I believe, and but he's been sort of within the natural wine and in the wine industry for 20 plus years. Yeah. But yeah, and now I've come on and sort of it's me, Byron, and Bill. We're the Goat Boys.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Let's jump in and we'll talk.
Yeah.
I'm sure like tasting the wines we'll end up sort of start talking more about
the first guy is Boal Muscadet from Domaine Tourlardier. Winemaker's name is Romain Petitot, which means little water in French. Boal means northern wind in their dialect, which is actually I think a Roman dialect that came over. Technically Muscadet, 100% Melon de Bourgogne.
Yeah.
They are in Valette, which is really close to Nantes.
Yeah.
So technically Muscadet territory.
What's the soil here?
It's Gabbro specifically on this vineyard site. So they have 21 hectares in total. He's a young in his early 30s, but has taken over his family's plot. He farms mostly for his white stills. He farms mostly 4 hectares of the 21.
Okay.
We've tasted his sparkling, his Penat Rosé that is more like 14 of the 21.
Yeah.
So, but he tries for his whites, he tries to stick to 4 hectares. I think a lot of it has to do with the Gabbro kind of lending itself to salinity in them.
Yep.
So it creates a really lean finish but he likes to have more sort of rounded, fruit forward. There's always 2 schools, right? It's like sort of a little weightier, a little bit flabbier, or a very lean.
Right, very lean.
He tries to find that sort of like middle road.
Yeah. I feel like we should also point out, like Valette is one of the. It's one of the important like core parts of Muscadet.
For sure.
Muscadet has these different. I don't know what to call them. Like people keep comparing them to Cruz and like Beaujolais or something.
Yeah, they're
sort of kind of something like that, like different districts of Beaujolais.
Yeah.
And Valette is one of the sort of important Cru center parts of Muscadet.
For sure. I think this is a wine that honestly finds, because it is Sansouf. It is unfined, unfiltered, but settled heavily. As you can see, it's very clear. It's a wine that finds a real middle ground between the 2 worlds of Muscadet that we're used to. And Valette being a really important part of it, part of Muscadet itself. I don't know. He feels like a really great young winemaker that's sort of carrying on tradition, but also
how old is he?
His early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. Early mid 30s.
You're on the inside here. You can spit anywhere you want.
I'll spit anywhere I want.
Yeah. lot of minerality.
He is, so it's 100% Melon Gabbro, so as we spoke about. Fermentation and élevage is all done in the, when I found to be common actually, in Valette, are these underground beton, or concrete tanks that are lined with glass tiles.
Okay.
Before I spend 6 months with these integrations. But yeah, so it's almost amphora-like in concept, right?
Yep.
Except that oxygen can't release, right? It can come in, but it can't go out. So it's kind of cool. It's like this, the new vessel that I had never heard about until working with these guys, and found that in Valette it's actually a pretty common vessel for two production. Again, unfined, unfiltered, Sansouf. Sansouf muscadets have a tendency, in my book, to be a little bit flabbier. He's really good at finding that sort of roundness up front, and then again, the structure and salinity on the back end that keeps it really fresh. I just think this is a wine that punches way above its class. You know what I mean? Above its price point.
Yeah, if I forget that I'm drinking Muscadet right now, and I just sort of step back and think like this is white wine. Like what is this? It's got depth. It's kind of creamy. It's not viscous, but it's like it fills your palate. It's sort of like palate filling, but it's still fresh and clean, and then it has awesome salinity. It has great mineral structure.
Yeah, and then the Gabbro soils were just like a dark black igneous rock, so kind of volcanic in nature. Has a relationship to Melon. I don't know the scientific reason behind it, but has a tendency to lend itself to very sort of like saline rich melons. I think that their lees integration, you know, obviously Muscadet is Surly, so commonplace, but lees integration on this is really well kind of rounded and integrated. It's creamy without being, and nutty without being a flavor profile that you necessarily have to be aware of, right? It's part of it. But I just think he's a great winemaker. I think he comes from a line of people who have been making winemakers for a long time, and he, you know, it's nice to sort of see a youthful voice in an area that can have a tendency to be a little bit staunchy. And kind of set in its ways and very kind of, you know, kind of basic entry level. He's trying to do a little bit more.
Yeah.
Without being like wild.
Yeah, without he's rocking the boat without.
Yeah, it's just beautiful wine. It's not like it's beautiful, clean, fresh, but also has texture and has something to it.
It's more interesting.
Yeah.
This is more complex.
Yeah. It's not like just acid, oyster shell, you know, like driven.
But somebody that is used to, you know, traditional classic Muscadet, you know, like this is. It tastes like the ocean.
100%.
Like it's salty, it's it's refreshing, it's thirst quenching. Like it does those things.
I mean, I would still eat this. I would still eat oysters with this.
Right. This would be great with oysters. This is great with seafood. This would be great just like sitting outside in the sun on a dock, something like that. Like that is sort of where this goes.
And the other thing I really like about this wine, and this is a conversation about Sansouf or no SO2 and our expectations of no SO2 being something that can always lend itself to flaws or whatever.
Yeah.
This is a non-SO2 based wine.
Yeah.
Based off of the winemaker's decision to not add it.
Yeah.
Right? That is what I always call like a fridge door wine. It's a great wine to drink. It's a great wine to cook with. You can have it for 2 or 3 days. It doesn't flaw. It doesn't do it. You know what I mean? There
are no flaws. This is not reductive.
It's just really good winemaking.
Yeah, this is excellent, clean, interesting, expressive white wine.
This is what you get when you have somebody who knows what they're doing and chooses to not add.
Yeah,
that's that's sort of how I feel about it. And all of his cuvées are like this. They're really well rounded and beautiful. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, one of the most exciting Muscadets that I've had.
I'm agree. All right, moving on. Emilia Romagna.
Totally different.
Totally different wine.
Wild and
crazy man.
I like doing this. I like
totally
just
different
completely don't taste. It's hard tasting like six different Sauvignon Blancs or something like that.
Sure.
Going through like 5 different wines that are just completely different.
Totally different humans.
It makes it easier. It makes it easier to like talk about all the differences.
So this is Casei Bianco. The winemaker's name is Alberto Anguissola, and he is in the Piacenza Hills, over the river Trebbia. A couple hundred meters up. Not like crazy high by any means, but a decent elevation. He ranges up to about 500, so he can be pretty high for that area.
Yeah.
This is Ortugo, Moscato, Malvasia, and Brain. Sauvignon Blanc. No, definitely not Sauvignon Blanc. Ortugo, Moscato, Malvasia, and I'm forgetting one, but it's there. This is the freshest this wine has been in many vintages. Alberto is kind of it's a big family, that area, right? The sort of Piacenza Hills.
Right.
Casei, La Stopa, Vino del Poggio is another winemaker that we have. The gentleman from Gatte, Giulio from Di Napolino. All those guys, they sort of like share space.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same way we were talking about the Ardèche, right? Like
right.
These guys kind of like share grapes, share space, share vineyard sites.
Yeah.
But Alberto's been there a long time. And he's, since the late 90s.
Yep.
And has been making wine in a non-interventionist style the entire time. So he's kind of an OG of that style. This is a 0-0 wine. His wines are always 0-0, unfined, unfiltered, as you can see.
Yep.
But this, I will say, is the most, the lightest that this wine has ever been to me.
Yeah.
So a little bit more tropical in notes, like a little bit more sort of like pineapple flavor.
I think this is only the second vintage of it that I've had, but I see that the previous vintage that I tasted.
We tasted the Vino del Poggio earlier, the Bianco, which is a much richer kind of thing. This is much more kind of easy drinking, fresher, more tropical. And the reason being is that this time around, he took like a carbonic route.
Okay.
So he had 10,000 liter production. Yep. Although I can't remember all 4 grapes, but I can remember the 10,000 liter production. 10,000 liter production, and 300 liters out of the 10,000 liters, he carbonically macerated.
Okay.
Separated, and then over 40 days, the maceration comes from layering the 300 into the last 9,700 liters.
Okay.
So it's not like it's not like a direct contact for 40 days. Yep. It's like intermittent layering of flavors. I think that sort of like leavened it up a little, or levitated it up a little.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very different approach.
Different approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't had this in a while. Delicious.
Smells very sunny.
Mm-hmm. Super sunny on the palate too.
Yeah. Very stone fruit, like apricot,
but fresh apricot.
Fresh apricot. Peach.
I get there's a on the palate. There's like on the nose, I get like a little pineapple skin, sort of more tropics driven, but on the palate it's even more so. It's like fresh citrus, fresh tropical fruit, plucked straight from,
Yeah.
And you don't get, it's not like crazy tannins, and I think that's where the sort of carbonic
it doesn't have as much tannin, as some other like orange wines have.
This is definitely meant to be like a gluggable.
It has the fruit and the flavor, the extraction of serious orange wine, but it doesn't have the tannin. The nose is a little bit more savory. Like I get a little bit more like. I actually smell a little bit of like sweet squash, like roasted squash, like spaghetti squash or something in the aroma. But then on the palate, there's more like it's pineapple.
Spaghetti squash, that's a good call. It is more vegetal than expected.
I've been on a squash kick for the past like
week
or two of tasting squash or smelling squash in like skin contact, like white wines.
I had a carrot. I've had a carrot kick recently
Yeah,
in
you've
white
been
wine.
smelling carrots.
Carrot and carrot greens.
Yep. That's how it goes. The power of suggestion.
Power,
You
yeah.
start, you know.
This wine tastes like carrots. Now you know. Oh,
You're excused if you actually now think that it tastes like carrots. Because that happens. Like people say something, and you're like, it just jogs it in your brain.
so
You're
did
like,
also
oh, yes.
Marsan, Moscato, Mortugo, Malvasia. Now
Okay.
we have all four.
It's Marsan.
No.
Okay.
Sauvignon.
No Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah. Really fresh, and again, cleaner than expected. Still, like you're getting some sort of like there's a gaminess to it, but it is
There's a little spiciness.
yeah. But it's not like wild and crazy
Yeah.
and funky.
There's a
as
little
expected.
like there's texture from the tannin, but it sneaks up on you. It doesn't dominate the finish. It doesn't run the rest of the wine over. What
I haven't had this in a while. It's really good.
what vintage is this? Is this a single vintage? or is
2020.
this- It's 2020. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah. I don't know how soon the next vintage is coming out.
That's
yeah.
really cool. It's the very good, like rich,
Yeah.
lush, complex, layered orange wine, but that's not like too intimidating for people.
Yeah.
It's not like too whatever earthy or
No, not at all.
reductive or anything like that. It's fruit driven.
It's it's kind of like a great exactly this time of the year one. Like somewhere between 55 to 65 degrees outside.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be great all year round, but just like kind of right now where it's like beautifully sunny and just warm enough.
And I also I can imagine this being really great with ham
Yeah, it's a super ham nose.
or lamb.
Oh yeah.
This would totally work for like all those sort of spring Easter
Yeah.
foods.
Rabbit. Just for Easter. That's cruel, sorry.
What?
Rabbit at Easter. Just to mess with the kids. Hey Ross.
Julian Peyras. This is 100% Cinsault.
100% Cinsault. 45-year-old vines on 8 hectares. He's in Pohan, sort of northwest of Béziers. All dry farms, organic and certification, biodynamic. I know, right?
Yeah.
Always unflagged and filtered, always 0-0, so no sulfur added. Took over his family's vineyard in 2007, sort of in the Sebastian Riffaut kind of concept, right?
Yeah.
A vineyard site that was a little bit more conventional and transitioned the whole thing.
Okay.
But again, yeah, he's known for making, it's just everything done in stainless. He's not known for a ton of information on his favorite concept. But again, dry farmed, all hand harvested, meticulously picked through. And he's known for making really fresh wines.
Yeah.
But again, we've talked a little bit today about like fresh wines with viscosity, expecting them to be lighter in flavor profile. This still has body and texture and nuance. It's not just like easy, juicy juice, you know? But the nose is so like fresh, vibrant.
Just before we came out here and did this, you were like, how do people respond to the Julian Peyras? Because it's, it's pretty, like, that's pretty natural. It's pretty natch and stuff. And like, I was like, really? Is it like drinking it?
Natch.
Well, bro, drinking it now, like it's
Feels less natch.
yeah, like this is really pretty.
No, he's
It's
a great
just
winemaker.
really-
I think that we talked today a little bit about something like Marula, right? In Chinon, that are winemakers that sort of touch a whole length of varieties of grapes, right? Make a bunch of different cuvées,
Yeah.
and have like a through line, have this sort of like flavor profile or a texture or something.
Right.
And Julian is kind of like that.
Yeah. This personality that you can taste through.
Yeah, you
everything
can
that
taste
they
through.
Do.
But there is real winemaking there. There's
Yeah.
like it's not just about like quick, easy to bottle out juice. There's nuance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is actually, again, I haven't had this wine in a little while.
Right. Yeah.
This is even more kind of put together than it was the last time.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's still, you get this like really fresh nose, and then you get still like fresh, bright fruit, but then there's like some structure in your mouth. There's not tannin, but it's like fullness.
Yeah, I totally. The last time I had this was probably like the very beginning of December, I want to say, and it was probably a tiny bit reductive, and it was just like it was a little bit disjointed between this like savory reductive and then like vivid juicy fruit, and now it's beautiful. It's really integrated.
Touch of Brett,
just
like
a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's what's so wonderful about wine, right?
Yeah,
can turn around.
It surprises you.
It always. I feel very lucky with this book specifically because I have such a hand on what's happening within it. You know, with Byron and with Bill, like just being one of the only people involved in doing it, that I get to like sort of taste the bottles as they go. Yeah, and we get to make decisions based on what we think is the right time for it or not. Yeah, and seeing the evolution, and you know, there's this misconception that like natural wine doesn't like to be in bottle for an extended period of time. And that's a total misconception. Oftentimes it actually gets better. Before it doesn't. Right. You know, it's like sometimes it just needs that little bit of time to relax.
It's more of a living thing.
Yeah, it's an energetic winemaking process. It's a winemaking process that allows it to sort of do what it is going to do. You know? So sometimes you just need to let it do what it's going to do for a little while before it's ready for you.
It just I sometimes I think of wine that's more natural. I think of it as being sort of like cheese, like long cheese. That, you know, it's just it has a lifespan, and in the beginning when it's first released, like it may not be quite ready to eat yet, or it's like when a raw milk cheese is first released, some like wash rind, you know, whatever cheese, it may not really be at its peak. You know, like you can eat it and it's good and stuff, but if you wait and you give it like 2 or 3 months or something like that, it gets richer, it changes, it gets creamier, it displays other flavors.
I mean, that's again, I think that we are lucky enough to be able to hold on to wine and let it be and let it sit.
Yeah, we're in a position where we taste a lot of wines. Yeah, and we retaste wines and stuff, and so we get to see that progression,
minute to minute,
see how it happens.
We tasted the wine earlier today that like is a fantastic cuvee from Savoie that within 5 minutes, and just like in our mouth and in the glass,
was different. And we're gonna taste all those wines again tomorrow.
Yeah, right. So it's like, you know, and we'll see how it opens up the next day, and it will be different. And that's not a negative. I think that's the other thing that we've sort of come in terms of natural wine. It's come to like this place where it's like it's not the same every time.
Yeah.
No, it shouldn't be.
It's fun.
It's a living being.
Yeah. The discovery of it.
Yeah. Good winemaking is good winemaking. You know, I mean, all of these wines that we've tasted, that we're gonna taste, are all without sulfur, and they're all made by a skilled hand, right? Yeah. This isn't going anywhere in 3 hours.
Right.
It's
no,
like,
this is really this taste. This is very precise. And here now, it's very pretty. There's sort of like strawberry, raspberry, cranberry fruit, but then it's like the mid palate has more. It gets riper and sunnier and sort of warmer. Yeah. And then there's these tannins like sort of sneak up on you there. I really like Cinsault.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad Cinsault.
There's a lot of bad Cinsault.
Because Cinsault is a grape that they grow a lot of in the southwest of France.
Generally blended in.
Yeah, it gets used as a blending grape. Usually, there's plenty of 100% Cinsaults, but often a blending grape. So for some people, it's an afterthought.
I mean, this is also different than a lot of Cinsault.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fruit in this Cinsault, which generally Cinsault is used as an acid sort of.
Right. It's used in southern France. It has more acidity than all the other stuff they're growing than Syrah,
and everything else that's heat
stuff. Yeah. Carignan. So it has more acidity. So they use it. I assume that they
balancing
probably,
a pH agent.
They often harvested relatively unripe to boost the acidity.
Yeah.
You know, this.
Well, that's what you were talking about before, about this sort of like these cranberries, the raspberries, these sort of bright red fruit that can be sharp.
Yeah.
But it isn't sharp with nothing else. It's sharp with also this sort of like fresh juiciness around it.
Juiciness, and then like approachable, like restrained tannin that's very integrated into the wine. Yeah.
Yep.
That's really good.
It's really good right now.
Yeah.
We're hitting 3 for 3 right now.
That's really cool.
And I know the last two are. I'm a big fan of both of the last two. So. Saint Croix. So these are John and Elizabeth Bowen, British expats, super sweet human beings. They are in the France Corbière, so somewhere in between the Languedoc and the Roussillon. They are at the foothills of the Pyrenees. So all of these places and every vineyard site that anybody ever describes is an incredibly beautiful place.
I remember that. Okay.
Yeah. Everyone will be like, that vineyard is incredible. And then there's this place.
And it's also like geologically crazy, right?
Crazy.
Because it's like the Pyrenees running into the southern Languedoc, and
exactly.
So
and you get all these sort of like coastal Mediterranean winds coming off the Pyrenees that make it so that they have to use no like pesticides or fungicides on the vine bases. So there's just like enough warm air that keeps any moisture from inhabiting and ruining any of the crop. This place is pretty spectacular. I mean, it's like wild asparagus growing everywhere, and peonies growing in between the Syrah, and like you're like literally at the foothills of the Pyrenees. And yeah, incredibly sweet people. British expats sort of traveled the world looking for sort of higher end sites, Pinot Noir, such as things like that, and they just came upon this place and they were just like, we can't. How could we not make wine from here? About 13 hectares.
Okay.
Somewhere between 150 and 250 meters up.
Okay.
They are pretty. I mean, there's like it's Syrah, Grenache, very old vine Carignan there, 115 years old. Grenache Blanc, Grenache Gris.
Okay.
And that's about it. That's all they have. And I really appreciate the wines they make, because they're not making wines for cool kids. They're just making great wine at a really reasonable price point. And in Europe, they're like a star, like a Michelin star to the list. If you get the right, you know what I mean? Like if you add it, they're the people who know that it's like a steal, the wines that they make. This specifically, the Pourboire Nature, sort of purist of nature, right? Is 49% Grenache, 31% Old Vine Carignan, 115 years old. Somewhere the rest of the math doesn't work, but 10%, let's call it 10% Syrah.
You just have to believe.
You have to believe. 10% Syrah and then 10% Grenache Blanc. They don't put the Grenache Blanc on the label for bureaucratic reasons.
Yep.
So it's probably 20% Syrah,
yep,
but 10 and 10.
Okay.
I don't know what the bureaucratic reasons would be that they don't put it on, but maybe they would have to call it a rosé or I don't know. Anyway.
Is it? Yeah, it's just It's just IGP.
IGP, yeah.
IGP Valley du Paradis.
Yeah.
It's the Valley of Paradise.
It is.
And it's actually an appellation. It's an actual appellation, the Valley of Paradise.
So this spends 15 days co-fermenting, cold temperature control.
All the grapes together co-fermented?
Yeah, co-fermented. And then
So there's got to be some kind of like kind of compromise of like some things are more ripe, others are less ripe.
for sure. I mean, I think I think that's where the Grenache Blanc comes in.
Yeah.
So the Carignan, they are not dogmatically sans sucre.
Yeah.
But anything that has the Carignan in it, they believe strongly doesn't need sulfur.
Okay.
Because of the strength of its vines and
Yep.
and the grapes themselves.
More, like I mean that's and to address that,
Yeah.
like more extraction, tannin, stuff like that does actually help stabilize the wine. Like that will bind with esters, yeah, and keep the wine. Like it's not that the wine doesn't age or oxidize, but you don't taste it. Like
Yeah.
it keeps those having more tannin in structure keeps those flavors from being richer
sure.
as the wine ages.
So this is 2020, I believe, right? 2020. And yeah, so one of the things they do with red wines that I think that they're masters at is lees integration. So this is 15 days, co-ferment, in stainless, temperature controlled, and then 6 months on lees with light stirring in the beginning.
Yeah.
And what that creates is like this sort of texture in the wine that with high acid grapes like Grenache Blanc, even though that's like a weightier white, you get this sort of like nutty textured wine where you get a little bit of like the sort of citrus based acid coming from the Grenache Blanc, and you get something that's like an incredibly beautiful deep color, but finds sort of like a middle ground between sort of like medium plus body, acid driven, juicy, textured. I don't know, it's just like, to me, it's like you can't really beat this wine all year round. It can take a chill, it doesn't need one. It pleases a lot of people. And it's, again, without sulfur, this is a wine that can sit on your counter for 2 or 3 days. So we go back to just good winemaking, great winemaking.
Yep.
That's what I love. That's what I really appreciate about, I mean, all of these winemakers, but these guys specifically, they're just really great winemakers. And it's like a, that's what they do. It's not they're not in it for anything else, you know?
Yeah. It smelled a tiny bit of reductive at first, you know, and that's already sort of blown off.
Yeah.
Reductive is sort of a chemical thing that happens to the wine when it's deprived of oxygen, usually before bottling. But it'll help preserve the wine, and it's already
you know, it starts off a little bit like that De Bourg Boja that we were tasting a little bit.
Yeah.
Has that same sort of like, to me sometimes once the reduction burns off a little bit, it has a tendency to like give you almost a brightness, like an acid on the nose. It sort of lifts, you know? And because you still get these sort of like GSM flavors, right? You get sort of anise, you get some sticks, you get all of that sort of like spice.
Yeah.
But it's lifted, it's fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, the fruit flavors are bright and fresh. It's kind of plummy, but it's like it's not jammy, it's not cooked, it's not tired.
No, it's
sunny.
like it's fresh.
And then it has substantial tannin.
Yeah.
They're kind of like dry and dusty.
Yeah,
but there's also at the same time there's a flavor that's like a little bit chocolatey there.
Oh, totally, like cocoa powder.
Yeah.
I think it's also a great food wine too. Like it finds real friends kind of across the board. You know, I wouldn't necessarily like have fish with this, but maybe something fattier. You know what I mean? So maybe even like a fattier fish, like a mackerel, might be able to hit it. There's enough acid in there that to me kind of drives, and I think that's the Grenache Blanc. Grenache Blanc gives you kind of like that sort of like grapefruit pith, citrus peel acid. It's not like citric acid, it's citrus acid. There's like a freshness and oiliness to it. I love these guys though.
Yeah. How do you find these wines? So like how does Goatboy?
I mean, it's a mixture.
Wines?
I mean, Bill is a big part
Mm-hmm.
of why that happens. Byron is also. There's Mark. Mark is sort of the man on the ground with Bill. In Paris.
They're both in Paris.
Yeah. Bill is somewhere between Paris, Barcelona, and New York. At all times.
And so that sort of he runs into things that are there.
Yeah, I mean the way it works out there is there's a lot of headhunters too. I mean you have people on the ground who kind of know. But these are old relationships. I mean, these are not new winemakers to the natural wine world.
You know what
I mean? Like these are.
I mean, some of the. I'm thinking of some of the things that we tasted earlier today.
Yeah.
Like some of those are really young new winemakers.
Yeah, young new winemakers. But what we're tasting right now is part of sort of the old guard.
Yeah.
In a way, and funny enough, I mean we're about to taste a Bordeaux Merlot-based Bordeaux from the Entre de Mer, which is a Semillon-based production site in between the left and right banks. It's not really meant for red wines. It's an island, and this is
not meant for red wines according to books from the 80s.
Exactly, from the 80s, excuse me. But that being said, it's not a large production site for classically made Bordeaux, Merlot-based Bordeaux. It also isn't a place for, and most of Bordeaux isn't a place for biodynamic, DB2 certified, Sansu, unfined, unfiltered, Steiner focused.
What part of Bordeaux is where that all comes from?
I don't know.
What part of Bordeaux?
I don't think it exists. I think
no part of Bordeaux is known for
Well,
wines.
I think there's a lot of people who are. I think there's a lot of wineries there that are claiming organic.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to call your site organic or biodynamic after hundreds of years of production without it being that way. So, this site, this is Castelville-la-Salle. It's technically a VDF, Vin de France, non-vintage, 13 and 14's harvest. It's by winemaker. 11 and 12, not 13.
I was going to say. I
apologize.
I wasn't, but I was
you
thinking.
You can correct me because I have lots of numbers in my head.
It does because I noticed the other day I was looking at the boxes and all the boxes say 11-12 on them, written on them in Sharpie.
Yeah, in Sharpie. That's what happens when you have a wild man making wine in the middle of nowhere. So the winemaker's name is Michael Jeanmain. This site had, again, I have the Entre de Mer in between the left and right bank. It's an island, all sand. Somehow he has no sand on his property. These are about 50-year-old vines. He has been organic since the 60s, since 1964. And
it says on the side of the bottle,
and then biodynamics since 2003.
Very proudly.
Yeah.
DB2
certified since 2003.
Agrobiologique depuis 1964. Yeah.
So you can depend on the fact that this site is truly organic and truly biodynamic in practice, and plus he's also follows Steiner to a T. So he's following moon cycles and such, the lunar calendar. No pesticides get used on the property at all. He only uses oils and such to deflect any sort of insecticides or as insecticides. This is 50% Merlot, 25% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Cabernet Franc. Aged, or fermented originally in half béton cuve, so concrete tanks, or vessels, and half old barrique, old wood, that's been used 3 or 4 times. So it will impart no flavor in any way, shape, or form. And then the élevage, or the time spent, is going to be in 17-year-old, for this vintage, it obviously gets older as it goes, 17-year-old barrique, the same old wood, for 34 months. So it's made in a very classic style, right? So I guess to point out the tangent, that I've been on, I apologize, I can do this, people tell me to stop talking all the time, is that this is unexpected, right? Mm-hmm. To have a Merlot-based Bordeaux from the middle of the 2 banks, without sulfur, without fining, without filtration, without heavy oak usage, right? Produced biodynamically, and then for it to be this classic.
All of the things you told me, I don't expect. classically, traditionally a very like export focused, you know,
Yeah.
like what's the bottom line?
It's an
You know, like,
allocation.
what's the return on investment? You know, it's a very commercial place. But then drinking this wine is like gorgeous. Like what I want Bordeaux to be, like
Yeah.
why I love what makes
fresh.
me love Bordeaux. Yeah, this is really beautiful, integrated, complex, compelling wine.
You still get like black olive, you still get that sort of sense of garrigue or sort of like forest floor,
Yeah.
right? So you get these sort of classic notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get fresh fruit, you get a little bricking, just like a touch, you know, you get some aging to it because it's a non-vintage and spent some time in its vessel. But it's like, you can also, it's like, I don't know what temperature we're at. We're at warehouse temperature, but it could even take it even more cold
Yeah.
if it wanted to. Like, you have really fresh fruit flavors, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't necessarily always the case. Very often it's not the case. And again, you know, you're talking about something that you can't see your fingers through, really, you know? So it's unfiltered. It's of itself. It's not thinned out, or it's not manipulated to taste like something that the world wants it to taste like.
Yeah.
You know, Merlot has a bad rap, right? Not when it's handled by someone who knows what they're doing.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
This is one of my gems of the book. You know, it's not, the youngins aren't always going for Bordeaux, biodynamic Bordeaux, but I mean,
but
it's
they
just
should.
great. They should. It's
They
really
should.
great wine.
Like what Bordeaux can be, what Bordeaux should
Yeah.
be at its best, or why this is the reason that Bordeaux is famous. It's wines like this, that Bordeaux is a place where you can make wines like this that have these
So good.
beautiful secondary flavors.
Yeah.
That when I started working in the wine business when I was a teenager, I worked at the Blue Hill. Back then they called it the Tea and Tobacco Shop. We primarily sold wine, but we had a walk-in humidor and stuff. So I'm actually really familiar with what cigar boxes smell like, and
yeah.
like pipe tobacco and stuff. And like, this has that like cedar, tobacco, like cigar box.
But it's
like,
secondary. It's
in the
tertiary.
background,
It's like
yeah,
it's
like,
all.
it's got great like dark fruit, like currant, cherry.
But it's not added flavor.
Mhm.
And so this is the thing, the distinction for me about this versus the Bordeaux that we are expected to laud.
Mhm.
You know, in some way, shape, or form. It's like, this is pure fruit.
Yeah.
It's not manipulated. It doesn't have oak chips added to it. It doesn't have, this is just
Yeah.
old wood,
Yeah.
concrete, old wood again, and medium aged vine grapes.
Yep.
Handled by someone who knows what they're doing.
Someone
and cares
who really
about
knows what they're
And
doing
cares
and
about it.
knows this land and this place
Yeah.
and cares about
and
it.
and what you get is like a really pure form of a region. And terroir can be a word that gets has its misgivings and whatever, but this is of its place for sure. We talked about this a couple times today in terms of the Emilia Romagna, like the Casa Bianco. That is of its place. You can't.
Yeah.
It's in, I don't know. I think in an era of fresh juice, quick bottling, co-ferments of everything, it's sort of refreshing to kind of revert back.
Yeah. Well,
to wines that taste like where they're from.
That's what. That's why I'm excited, or what gets me excited about Goatboy, about all these wines that I have tasted from you and Byron and Bill.
Yeah.
That they these are like beautiful, expressive wines with sense of place, and things like this that I'm like where like no one expects this to even exist, and where has this been all this time? Like how did you run into this?
I mean, I worked with Byron for years, as sort of a secondary note when I was chef at a restaurant in Hudson, New York, and Byron was doing the wine list, and he's a part of the hotel, and I just feel really lucky now to be when I made the change to the wine industry, I mean, I've always sort of worked in and out of the restaurant and wine industry my life, but there's something about what Byron and Bill and Mark and the book does that it feels like sort of wine in its purest and kind of I don't know, it's the right place somehow. They have a tendency to find sort of timeless wines. Does that make, you know what I mean? Like not wines that are like gonna come in and then go.
Yeah.
These are wines that are like meant to actually live with. Like we talk about other allocated wines, things like that. Like vintage to vintage.
Yeah. The VLSL particularly like makes me wonder, asks this question to me, or poses the question, like, because they've been there doing this, obviously, like from the label since 1964, you know, and I'm like, where has this wine been?
There are no unicorns flying out of a flame on this label. Is it?
I mean,
I love this label, but you know, it's not a.
It's a great label. I mean, I guess I'm like, this wine. It's not a commercial wine. It's not made for what the market wants. They've just been doing this all this time, and now the market has rotated around and been like, oh, this is actually what we're interested in or want. And
I just think it's like one of those ones that like shocks all the people. You know, I spent my whole life on the road tasting wine with people and all levels of and flavor profiles and whatever, and it's like one of my favorite things to pull out of the wine, because it's always like, I'm okay, you know, like I'm good, and then you drink it and you're like shocked by how complex and how fresh and how lively and earnest it is. And again, this whole lineup is actually full of reasonable price points also. You know, like, these are not wines that are going to break the bank by any means. They're just kind of like people making good wine for a reasonable price in an earnest format. Like, isn't that what we hope?
That is one of the two. That's one of the two core things that like Devonish tries to be.
Exactly.
Like, wines that are good values.
Good values.
You know, whatever price they are, like I want them to be good values.
Right. You're not like like the whole point of us tasting 20 plus wines today. Was for you to find. This is what Ned will do for all of us, right? Is to find the ones that feel like the best values for everybody else, and the most quality-driven, best values. I don't know. It's just like these are when we did the first order. This was like I was like, man, he gets the book. You know, like that. To me, these are great options for me. This is one of my favorite.
I agree. I think I made.
He makes great options.
I made good choices.
You see what I'm doing? No, I mean, like wines like the Boal and the Castel VLSL, which are not like, I don't know, they're not like, again, like there's no unicorns flying out of bottles. They're just like incredibly delicious, simple, beautiful, I don't know, well put together wines. You know, it's like, I don't know, they won't erupt when you open it.
Yeah, they don't. That's true.
You know, they're just like they're. So when we think about natural,
talking about my other pet nats that explode?
All of his pet nats
exploding.
No, I mean I just think that like in the sense that like we have these expectations about natural wine, right? That it's going to be like crazy and wild and whatever, and like these are all very as natural as it gets.
Yeah.
Right? No, whatever that,
making wine naturally should be.
You should be making wine.
You should be making wine that's delicious and good to drink and fun, and you should be trying to make it naturally because you know, like you don't want to poison yourself and your kids and the land that you live on.
So like Byron and Bill and I liked to hope that at some point we'll just call them wine bars. Instead of natural wine bars.
Instead of natural wine bars.
Because like slowly, you know, it's like, or we'll just continue to utilize the word nat just because it's unnecessary. But I think, I just, there's something to be said about like making wine that happens to not be made with a bunch of things unnecessarily. And again, the wine's in their purest kind of purest form. Vin natural, as they say. Hashtag all the hashtags. I don't use them. One day I'll get better at these things.
Don't worry about it. All right, thanks a lot, everybody. Here's all the wines in order that we tasted through them: Bohal, Casabianco, Julien Perras, Saint Croix, and Casavilla La Salle. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.